Hey guys, welcome to another Stukent expert session. Today we have the opportunity to hear from Brian Stempeck, who is the Chief Client Officer at the Trade Desk. Today, Brian is going to be giving us a 101 to programmatic advertising. Brian received his master's degree from the University of North Carolina and has been working at the Trade Desk for over 8 years now. The Trade Desk powers the most sophisticated buyers in advertising technology, and it has become the fastest growing demand-side platform to manage display, social, mobile, and video advertising campaigns. Now, without further ado, here's Brian Stempeck.
Hi, I'm Brian Stempeck, Chief Client Officer at the Trade Desk, and I'm going to give you an introduction to programmatic advertising. So the first thing to understand what's happening right now is how consumers are changing their media consumption. We're seeing a couple of different things. If you look generation by generation, from baby boomers to Gen Xers to millennials and even Gen Z, there's this massive increase in how people are consuming content. Many of them are reading news or periodicals online. Gaming has jumped up on mobile devices, so has streaming music online on apps like Pandora and Spotify. There's this massive change that's happening where more and more media consumption is going digital. What this creates is a really interesting problem for a marketer, where in the past, if you wanted to reach the majority of the American population, you could run 3 major TV networks. You could run print full-page ads in the New York Times. That's no longer the case, because consumers have fragmented their media behavior across lots of different devices and lots of different screens, which makes it tough for a marketer to figure out, well, how do I get a message out to everyone in this family and change their perception of my brand or raise awareness of my marketing category? What this means is there's a huge opportunity to reach consumers across the entire internet. Sometimes there's a perception that Google and Facebook are where everyone spends most of their time online. And indeed, those are 2 very big places where consumers spend a lot of their time. But the internet is a pretty big place. A couple data points to that fact. The New York Times spent $340 million in online subscriptions in 2017. Spotify has more than 140 million active listeners. Major networks like NBC are seeing that connected TV makes up a huge amount of the viewership, even for their hit shows, where consumers aren't watching on broadcast, they're watching on connected TV. The internet's a huge place, but it's also really fragmented. No one publisher, no one destination is going to be enough for a marketer to achieve all of their goals. So we've established that digital media is growing, that it's very fragmented, that consumers are spending their time on more screens and more websites and more destinations. But there's another trend that's happening at the same time, which is the rise of programmatic ad spending and programmatic technology. And what this chart shows you is that programmatic, the technology that underpins a lot of audience buying across the internet, is taking over a larger and larger share of digital. In fact, it's now more than half and forecast to take over digital in the next few years. The rise of programmatic technology is not dissimilar from how electronic stock trading came about. In the past 20 or 30 years, what we've seen is that the majority of trades on the NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, the London Stock Exchange are executed through electronic trades, and they're executed by computers and machines, no longer people on the stock trading floor holding up tiny pieces of paper, kind of waving them around and saying, I want to buy a share of this stock. In the same way that if you went to a consumer portal today, like E-Trade or Scottrade, and said, I want to buy a share of stock, you wouldn't say, I'm going to go execute an electronic stock trade. You just say, I'm going to execute a stock trade overall. I'm going to go trade a single share, and the background would all be electronic for you. The same thing is happening in advertising today. Digital media, the way it's being bought and sold, has changed from saying, let me give a piece of paper, an insertion order, to a publisher or to a website, and let them choose the ads and deliver it for me. Instead, what's happening is, impression by impression, ad by ad, the user is actually picking out what ads do I want to buy and giving those commands to machines to execute that campaign. So first off, what is programmatic? What do we mean by saying programmatic ad buying? There's 2 primary components to how you define programmatic. The first is that media is bought in an automated fashion through digital platforms. And what's happening in the background as a website loads is that every ad on that page is being auctioned off in a fraction of a second. And that's happening millions of times per second all over the world on almost every digital publisher. But that's happening in an automated fashion driven by machines. The other major component of programmatic is that the advertiser gets to choose what impressions they want to buy, instead of the publisher choosing and allocating those ads for them. And I'm going to talk a lot more about why that's important and what that means for the marketer. There are a few reasons that programmatic technology is so important for a marketer and advertiser, and I'm going to walk through a few of those. But to highlight some of the major benefits, the first is reach and scale. The internet is a big place, and Programmatic helps reach beyond any one publisher, any one website, to find consumers wherever they happen to be spending their time. The second is that as a marketer thinks about the customer journey, from awareness and branding all the way down to lower funnel activities like direct response, Programmatic can actually engage with a consumer at all of those different channels and touch points. I'm going to talk a little bit about why Programmatic is about choice, giving a buyer or media buyer the power to pick which ad impressions they want to buy. And I'll also speak a little bit about how increased return on investment or return on ad spend is a huge component of why Programmatic is powering more and more of digital. Programmatic delivers scale. A couple of quick stats. Facebook reaches a little more than 2 billion people per day. YouTube reaches more than 1 billion people per day. At the Trade Desk, we actually are showing ads to 4 billion people daily. And you might say, well, how is that possible? The Trade Desk is not consumer facing. This isn't a company I've heard of as much as I've heard of YouTube or Facebook. But what's happening is we're aggregating the rest of the internet. And that gives us the aggregate power of reaching people all over the world on every device, on almost every website. Programmatic advertising also enables more relevant ads. This creates a better consumer experience. When a consumer goes to a website or they're watching a connected TV and they see an ad, what Programmatic means is they're seeing an ad that's much more likely to be something that they want to buy or a product they're interested in. They're not seeing ads at random, as has so often been true in the past. I spoke before about the challenge to marketers of having such a fragmented way of reaching consumers. To reach a consumer on 3 or 4 devices during the day is really hard. Marketing budgets often live in silos. Here's my TV budget, here's my print budget, here's my digital budget, here's my social or native budget, and on and on. What's great about Programmatic is that it's omni-channel. You can actually reach the same consumer on every device. You might want to show a branding or awareness message on connected TV or on radio, where you're first establishing the brand with the consumer. Then later on, with a lower funnel activity, direct response, you might be showing a banner ad in display, or a native ad, or a mobile in-app ad. But what's great about this is you get a more holistic view of the consumer. A marketer today, or an advertiser, needs the power of choice to increase return on investment in their campaigns. And I want to talk about what that looks like. Imagine these 5 apples here represent 5 ad impressions on a site, 5 different people going to a single newspaper website. In the past, the way this would work is if you said to that newspaper, I want to buy an ad campaign on your site, the publisher, the owner of that site, would choose which ads you would receive. The difference today with programmatic technology is it moves more power into the hands of the buyer and the advertiser, where they can say, well, I know 5 people went to this newspaper website, but 4 of them aren't the type of person I want to reach. I actually think this one person is the type of customer that I want to show my ad to. They're most likely to buy my product. They're the type of person who's bought my product before. That's the one ad I want to buy. The other 4 I don't. That's the power of choice in programmatic. Programmatic also brings insights to marketers as well. We can show a marketer in which geographies down to zip code, city, and state that their campaign is performing in. We can show them by channel or device. Is mobile in-app performing better than desktop? Is connected TV performing better than radio? How should that influence their media mix? We can help them give all the raw inputs to make decisions about where should I as a marketer allocate my marketing budget? What are the best channels that I should be spending in? And what else can I learn about my consumers in terms of all their different audience characteristics? Thank you so much for your time today. Please stay tuned next for our VP of Client Services, Kathleen Comer. She's going to talk about 5 ways to evaluate a programmatic partner.